Welcome to another edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up. During this program, we will highlight the agenda items presented to the Lakeville City Council at their February 6th, 2017 meeting. First highlighted item on the agenda is item number 7, public hearing on the vacation of public street right-of-way in Gateway First Edition. And to provide the background information on this agenda item is Community and Economic Development Director Dave Olson.
Hey, Mayor Anderson, members of the council. You may recall, and or at least some of the council members that were on the council last year, we had a plat in the area of 172nd Street and County Road 5. And Jim, if you could just zoom in a little bit on that. This is the new road alignment for 172nd Street. The old 172nd Street used to be right here, so this is actually a fairly recent aerial photo map. It was kind of during construction, because this was the temporary connection that was made to the Kenyon Avenue cul-de-sac that was replaced with a permanent connection eventually. But where 172nd used to be, a portion of that street was vacated, as you recall, with this plat. In addition to the 30 townhome units that were behind the new alignment, there were 2 commercial lots that were created along County Road 5. And the north half of the old 172nd Street alignment was vacated and incorporated into the southerly of the 2 commercial lots that were created as part of that plat. However, because the south half of 172nd Street came and was dedicated as part of the plat that is known as Gateway Edition, we weren't able to vacate that, and in actuality, that if it is vacated, would be vacated and attached to the property on the south, which is the Holiday Gas convenience store located on County Road 5 and what used to be 172nd Street. We were contacted by, and we felt appropriate, since the city had vacated the northerly portion shown in yellow with the plat in 2016, that it would be appropriate, and this right-of-way was no longer needed now that 172nd Street's been relocated. And so that's the item before you. A couple items or caveats that are being attached to the plat, one of which is, at least for the time being, there's still a sidewalk and some private utilities in that right-of-way, so the vacation is contingent upon an easement being granted for the area that's vacated, so that it will become part of this lot, but it will be still encumbered with an easement. That could change in the future, and depending on how that area might be developed, but at least for now, it was the engineering staff's recommendation that we keep an easement over the entire 50 feet. And the other thing that's in your packet, you'll see, and the county, part of the reason that we did this project obviously was to move this access point further to the north on County Road 5, Kenwood Trail. So access restriction, a deed granting access restriction on this in favor of Dakota County is included in this action tonight as well. So it's pretty straightforward. It is the deed that is not included in your packet will be, the easement will be granted by the ownership for the Holiday Gas Station store, and that once the council approves a vacation, before we record that vacation, we'll get the deed from the property owner. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Item number 7 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda was item number 8, Avonlea Village Green. And to provide the background information on this agenda item is City Planning Consultant Daniel Licht.
Good evening, Mayor Anderson, members of the City Council. Daniel Licht with the Planning Company, a grown-up city planner.
Did you get any pointers?
I did, actually, yeah. I kind of started out the same way, so that's impressive to see. They may end up here at the podium someday in the future, too. It's pleased to be here tonight to present the application for Avonlea Village Green. The request before you tonight is consideration of a 146-unit apartment building that would be located at 181st Street and Glacier Way, east of Cedar Avenue. This is part of the Avonlea master plan that was approved in April of 2015 for Madame A Homes. They'd specifically reserved the northeast corner of the project for multiple family development adjacent to the Metropolitan Council's park and ride facility, and also as a transition to the future residential development that will occur surrounding their property. The applications that are before you tonight include a PUD, planned unit development development stage plan, which is essentially site and building plan permits for the proposed development, as well as the preliminary and final plat to establish the lot and block for the subject site. Start with the building plans. Again, it's 146 apartment units within a three-story building. The building exterior is constructed out of primarily masonry type materials. They also do have lap siding constructed out of fiber cement board. This building exceeds the requirements that would be established by the zoning ordinance for use of masonry materials, brick and stone, on all four sides of the building to create an attractive, durable, and sustainable structure going forward. The building height is measured to the midpoint of the pitched roof, and that is 42 feet. That's appropriate on this site, given the perimeter is 3 streets on the west, south, and east sides of the building, and then the transition to the north to future residential is more than double the required setback. So the height of this building is appropriate for the subject site and will blend in appropriately as a transition to the single-family uses to the south. The zoning ordinance establishes minimum floor area requirements for apartment uses to ensure usable structures. The building is 35% 2- and 3-bedroom units. There's an average of 1.4 bedrooms per dwelling unit, and all of the individual units exceed the floor area requirements established by the zoning ordinance. As a planned unit development district, there are no minimum lot area requirements. The zoning ordinance does establish a minimum lot area per unit requirement, but as part of the Avonlea PUD master plan, this site was specifically designated for 146 units, which works out to 26 dwelling units per acre for this subject site. In 2015 and 16, the City Council and Planning Commission had discussed performance standards specific for multiple family uses in areas either adjacent to high-density transportation corridors such as Cedar Avenue or transportation facilities such as the Park and Ride facility, where higher densities could be accommodated above what would typically be allowed by the zoning ordinance. This site certainly fits that criteria, and it's consistent with that master plan for Avonlea. Access to the site will be off of 181st Street and Glacier Way. Both of those roadways are designated as minor collector streets. The access points are all spaced to line up with existing streets parallel to the site and also meet the spacing requirements established by the zoning ordinance. Glenshaw Avenue, the right-of-way for that future street is actually on the property owned by Metropolitan Council and will need to be acquired through an easement in order to allow the developer to construct that roadway as part of their project. Depending on the timing of that acquisition, the developer is also showing on their plans the ability to construct a temporary turnaround at the northwest corner of their site off the private driveway behind the building that would provide sufficient turnaround space for fire and emergency vehicles until that roadway is constructed. The development agreement drafted by the city attorney addresses either construction of Glenshaw Avenue or provision of that temporary turnaround basis to accommodate flexibility in working with Metropolitan Council on these issues. The off-street parking requirements provided by the zoning ordinance, again, this is one area where the city indicated some flexibility for multiple family uses at this type of location to reduce our standard to 2 parking stalls per dwelling unit, one of which is enclosed. The proposed site provides 301 parking stalls, 241 of which are actually underneath the building in an enclosed space, so more than 80% of the required parking will be available to residents indoors. There are 60 surface parking stalls available for guests and also tenants of the building. All of these parking standards are designed to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance in terms of their dimensions and construction standards as well. So the site will function appropriately in terms of providing adequate parking space on site. Unique to this project is also a 18-stall detached garage that provides some additional opportunity for residents that might have additional storage needs beyond their personal vehicles. And that would also be included with the development. In terms of pedestrian access to the site, obviously with trails on Cedar Avenue, it's important to provide those pedestrian connections. There will be sidewalks on 3 sides of the building, again, adjacent to all the public streets, and internal sidewalks making connection into those public sidewalks for access by residents. part of their development plan, the developer provided a detailed landscaping plan indicating plantings that would be installed in the yard areas surrounding the building as well as the building foundation. All these plantings meet the requirements in terms of their type and their size and their spacing as required by the zoning ordinance to provide an attractive landscape amenity for the overall project. An additional amenity included with the project is also an outdoor swimming pool area and patio to the north side of the building that would be enclosed by a gate for security purposes required by the building code and also the zoning ordinance. Some of the more technical requirements, the developer provided a photometric lighting plan indicating the location, the height, the intensity of all lighting within the site to make sure it complies with the requirements of the zoning ordinance for light cast at property lines so it's not creating any traffic impacts or nuisance to adjacent property. They will also have a sign at the front of the building identifying their location. That would meet the requirements of the OR zoning district. The zoning ordinance currently does not allow for signage for multiple family uses. As a planned unit development district, the city can allow for the sign as part of this development. That's also an issue the Planning Commission will review as part of their zoning ordinance update to make that appropriate for other uses within the city as well. As a preliminary and final plat, the application is subject to park and trail dedication requirements. These were reviewed by the Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources Committee back in 2015 as part of the overall Avonlea master plan. The city is acquiring a large area at the southern portion of the development as well as neighborhood park sites within the development itself. In essence, acquiring land is in satisfaction of those requirements for the overall development. So there's no land acquisition or cash fee in lieu of land paid as part of this request. Engineering had the opportunity to review construction plans for grading, drainage, and utility issues as part of the application, as well as easements, and you have their report included in your packet this evening. The city attorney, as I noted, has drafted a development contract which the property owner and developer executed prior to the city council considering the application tonight, so that has also been provided for your review. City staff's review was that the proposed Avonlea Village Green apartment development is consistent with the requirements of the comprehensive plan, encouraging a diversity of housing types within the city. It also meets all the requirements of the Avonlea PUD district and zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission held a public hearing at their meeting on January 5th to consider the application. There were no comments at that meeting from the public. The Planning Commission was very supportive of the request and voted to recommend approval unanimously, subject to the 6 conditions outlined in the planning report from our office. The city attorney has also provided resolutions for your action tonight, approving the preliminary and final plat, as well as a resolution establishing no parking zones on the streets adjacent to the property. And we can stand for questions.
Item number 8 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda was item number 9, Kingsley Place. And once again, to provide the background information for this agenda item is City Planning Consultant Daniel Licht.
Thank you again, Mayor Anderson. As Mr. Chauvin summarized, they are proposing development of Block 1, Kingsley Shores Senior Living, located at the intersection of Kenwood Trail and Klamath Trail. This project was previously platted with development of the 94-unit first phase. Now they're moving to the east side of the site to develop the second phase. The subject site is Zone PUD, Planned Unit Development Zoning District, allowing for senior housing as a conditional use on the property. The site is also within the Shoreland Overlay District of Lake Kingsley, which has implications as to the development of the site. The comprehensive plan guides this site for commercial uses, but one of the elements of the 2008 Lakeville Comprehensive Plan was incorporation of allowing for senior housing within commercially designated areas of the city in order to expand opportunity for those types of uses and again expand housing choice for an aging population both locally and regionally. The site again is zoned specifically to PUD district to allow for that use. As a transitional land use, you have the chart house use to the west, single family uses to the east, and the proposed and approved Kenwood Place townhomes immediately to the south. So this blends in nicely with the existing and planned uses in the area and will basically expand the existing use occurring as part of this quadrant of the city. The proposed building plan is generally consistent with the material requirements and materials applied to the first phase building. Obviously, a significant change is this building is 4 stories high with a flat roof. In effect, the two structures are the same height, so there's no visual distinction between the two. And again, appropriate for this location adjacent to 2 major roadways and transitioning to the lake to the north with more than double the required setback between the ordinary high water mark and the building itself. The building again exceeds the material requirements established by the zoning ordinance, using more than 50% brick and stone on its facade, along with other masonry type materials, again for both aesthetics and durability going forward. And as Mr. Chauvin said, there's potential for a skyway between the 2 structures to allow people to move, especially at this time of year, between the 2 and take advantage of the facilities in each building. That would be constructed at some point in the future. It's obviously subject to review by the building department for compliance with building codes, and in that these 2 properties, these 2 buildings are each on separate properties, there would need to be a private agreement between them to provide for ownership and maintenance of that. Again, the building exceeds the floor area requirements for each individual unit. We're looking at just over 53% of 1-bedroom units. There's no memory care. These are all assisted or independent living units within this structure, the memory units being in phase 1. So 1 and 2-bedroom units between 520 and 600 square feet. The zoning ordinance requires 1,500 square feet of lot area for senior housing uses. This site exceeds those requirements, even disregarding the permanent open space that is included between the site and Lake Kingsley. The implications of the Shoreland Overlay District to the site basically take the form of density limits. What the DNR requires as part of their management rules that the city adopt regulations for development within shoreland areas 1,000 feet from the ordinary high water level that limit density to basically the equivalent of a single-family lot. So you take the area that's developable within the site, divided by the minimum single-family lot standard of 20,000 square feet, and that gives you the allowed density that can be put on the property. There are additional bonuses that can be achieved by moving the building farther away from the lot, which they've taken advantage of. With this site, they would be allowed to develop 3 dwelling units. Obviously, they're proposing 52 dwelling units more than that. In 2010, the city amended its zoning ordinance, changing the classification of the west section of Lake Marion from a recreational development lake to a natural environment lake, based on the characteristics of that water body being more like a wetland area than a recreational lake. The DNR allowed the city to capture the 209 dwelling units that could have been developed on the west side of Lake Marion and put that into a reserve to be allocated to other shoreland areas within the city. The intent of that was specifically to allow for development of this type in certain areas where it's appropriate in terms of available infrastructure, mainly transportation and utilities. So with the first phase development, a number of those 209 dwelling units were allocated to this property. There's 115 remaining. This site will take 52 of those, leaving 63 in that residential shoreline density to reserve to be allocated elsewhere. But the site does then comply with the requirements of the Shoreland Overlay District. The DNR was provided copies of the development plans and contacted city staff with questions, but no concerns regarding the proposed development. Setbacks applicable to the site are generally 30 feet from the adjacent right-of-ways. There's a 20-foot setback required between the common property line with phase 1, and the site plan as presented complies with all of these setbacks. Impervious surface, again being within the Shoreland Overlay District, is limited to 25% of the site. The developer is achieving that compliance with that requirement based on the amount of open space within the site, as well as using pervious pavers for portions of the parking lot, which the DNR allows them to be credited as 50% pervious, so that they're able to comply with that. Access to the development will be off of the existing driveway to Klamath Trail, used by phase 1 and shared with this development. Based on the 55 dwelling units within the structure, and also the developer intends that the wellness center within this building may be open to the public. which is certainly a benefit not only to the residents, but then the community at large. But we need to ensure there's adequate parking, so we included that as part of the calculation of required parking for the site, which equates to 71 stalls need to be provided within the site. There are to be 71 stalls within the site, between a mix of 55 under the, 55 under the dwelling and 16 on the surface. There's also 19 additional stalls available on the Phase 1 site that were surplus parking. During the public hearing that the Planning Commission held, the city did receive comment with concerns about parking on Klamath Trail. So one of the recommendations from the Planning Commission was the council adopt a resolution establishing no parking zones on that roadway, and the issue was communicated to the project team, and they will address it mainly as a management issue for their employees. Based on the number of off-street parking stalls that are mainly under the building, it's really an issue of encouraging the employees to take advantage of those and use those stalls rather than parking on the street. Again, all the parking stalls meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance in terms of their design and construction. And so again, we have a functional site plan that will ensure proper traffic movement. There's an existing trail on Klamath Trail with a sidewalk connection to the building. The 2014 Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan calls for a trail on the west side of Kenwood Trail. The developer will grade that trail corridor as part of their site plan and then escrow funds in accordance with the subdivision ordinance for future construction of that once the segment is completed to the north. Also, as part of their plan, they have submitted landscaping. Multiple family uses for senior housing are treated a little differently under the zoning ordinance. Typically, a site adjacent to major roadways is required to provide additional landscaping as a buffer between the residential use and the traffic impacts on the roadway. However, when the city was first dealing with senior housing development, the operators indicated that the residents prefer to be able to see and experience the traffic occurring on the road, especially if they're more homebound residents. So for that reason, we don't require the buffer yard landscaping on senior housing projects, but they are showing landscaping consistent with the corridor and gateway design study that the city had done a number of years ago to provide for that consistent landscaping treatment along Kenwood Trail as part of their site. They're also providing extensive landscaping throughout their yards and at the foundation of the building, consistent with the requirements of the zoning ordinance. In terms of signage for this site, they're proposing one wall sign, 50 square feet, consistent with the allowances for uses within the OR district. The original approval for Kingsley Shores Senior Living included a shared freestanding sign for the two senior housing buildings as well as the chart house at the intersection of Kenwood Trail and Klamath Trail. So no additional freestanding signs would be constructed. Again, in terms of the technical requirements, the city engineer's office has reviewed the grading and utility plans. They've also provided a photometric lighting plan showing compliance with the zoning ordinance requirements for exterior lighting. And the city attorney's office has drafted a site improvement performance agreement in the form of a development agreement to ensure completion of the improvements within the site as consistent with the approvals being requested. Again, in terms of diversifying housing within the city of Lakeville, senior housing has certainly been a priority and acknowledged as part of the comprehensive plan and discussions by the Planning Commission and City Council. So it's positive to see this development move forward with its second phase and in such a quality way that meets all the requirements of the PUD district and the zoning ordinance as well. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on January 19th. Again, there were no comments regarding this application. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the conditional use permit and PUD development stage plan for Kingsley Shores, Kingsley Place, subject to the 8 conditions outlined in the conditional use permit.
Item number 9 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda was item number 10, PetSmart Spirit of Branch and Farm Plan Unit Development Amendment. And once again, to provide the background information on this agenda item is City Planning Consultant Daniel Licht.
This is a request to amend the PUD development stage plan that was approved for Lot 1, Block 1, Spirit Place of Branch Farm. This is located south of County Road 42, 160th Street, and Elmhurst Lane. The Hy-Vee store is directly to the south, surrounded by future development. This is part of the overall Spirit of Branston Farm Planned Unit Development District that was approved in 2005. The primary reason this area is designated for planned unit development is site design characteristics. The developer at the time had a master plan for basically the northeast square mile of Lakeville, showing a unique layout of street connections and lots and blocks for future development. In this situation, we have private driveway accessing these commercial developments. So essentially the whole northwest corner of Branston Farm is functioning like a shopping center, similar to Timbercrest at Lakeville or Argonne Village along County Road 50 or Crossroads along the Cedar Avenue corridor. Within that planned unit development district, there were performance standards established that referenced back to the city's C3 general business district. So in terms of lot area requirements, setbacks, building material requirements, and signage provisions that apply to this site the same as they would any other commercial development within the C3 district. When the developer proposed their PUD development stage plan for Spirit Place, and specifically the development stage plan for PetSmart, they requested additional number and area of signs as part of that project. That was reviewed by the Planning Commission and approved by the City Council in August of 2016 with the stipulation that they comply with the sign allowances of the C3 district. The indication at the time then was that the development itself wasn't distinct in terms of its characteristics from other commercial developments within the city subject to the same signage standards that would warrant flexibility under the PUD district. Planned unit development districts are essentially customized zoning districts where the city can provide flexibility from established standards when it serves a greater site design or improved project need. But the intent is that the underlying flexibility, that the flexibility remains consistent with the underlying intent of the zoning ordinance. So in terms of the signage standards that have been adopted for uses within the general business district, signs are always a tricky issue. You're balancing business identification, community aesthetics, and also traffic safety. This request came back to the city in January this year. One of the things city staff discussed is that as part of our zoning ordinance update that is currently ongoing with the Planning Commission, that we should raise the issue initially to the Planning Commission outside of the amendment process and say, looking generally at the C3 district uses, is there interest by the Planning Commission in increasing either the area or the number of signs allowed for uses within those zoning districts generally? The Planning Commission discussed that at their initial work session January 5th. They were not interested in reviewing those sign standards and recommend no change at this point. So city staff has not moved forward with that effort, and instead this proceeded to a public hearing at the Planning Commission meeting on January 19th to consider the request. Mr. Moe was present at the meeting, but there were no additional public comments. The Planning Commission discussion again basically echoed their comments in August of 2016 that the site itself and the basis for the request being consistent with the operator's commercial sign program wasn't justification for flexibility under the PUD district. So the Planning Commission made a motion to recommend City Council approval of the application, but that motion failed by unanimous vote. So no recommendation for approval comes forward to the City Council. City staff is recommending the request be denied, and the City Attorney has drafted findings of fact for that decision.
Item number 10 was denied by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda was item number 11, resolution approving feasibility report and calling public hearing for improvement project 17-04. And to begin a series of presentations, here's Public Works Director Chris Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My pleasure to be here with you this evening presenting our Holyoke Avenue Improvement Project and the feasibility report that was completed. I'd like to introduce Monica Heil, our project manager for the project with WSB and Associates. I know many of you are familiar with Monica. And we also have Brian Hargis with HKGI, who also worked on the project as our landscape architect. I want to preface the discussion and the presentation as we start, though, because we're just coming off of a work session with the council where we had an opportunity to discuss this project at length. And as Monica goes through the slides, I want to make the council well aware, as we're looking at the project as a whole, this lays the foundation. The feasibility report lays the foundation and all the discussions and all the great interactions we've had with the DLBA subcommittee as well as the residents in the area. And this paints a picture today. This is not by any means approving any of the plans or specifications for the project. And as the council discussed at the last work session, it would be our intent as staff and Ms. Heil and Mr. Hargis to bring back additional information, have additional meetings with the DLBA subcommittee and the residents in the area to further develop the plans and specifications as we proceed. So I just wanted to make sure the council was well aware of that, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Heil to present the feasibility report.
Thank you, Mr. Petrie. Welcome, Ms. Heil. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you recall, the Holyoke Avenue Improvement Project may or may not work. The project includes the mill and overlay of Holyoke Avenue between Heritage Drive and 215th Street. The project was originally identified as part of the city's pavement management program, whereby we look to extend the useful life of existing roadways within the city. Holyoke Avenue is just over 20 years in age, and at this time, we seal up the surface by removing the top pavement layer and installing a new pavement layer. With that, we also would replace spot curb and gutter throughout the project that is either structurally deficient or holding water, do some sidewalk replacement in areas where there are some sidewalk panels that need to be replaced either due to structural deficiencies or to meet current ADA requirements. But we're also looking specifically at the improvements within the business district, and that's what Mr. Petrie alluded to with our discussions over the past year and a half with the DLBA and the improvements proposed through the business district. Through many discussions with property owners and residents alike, we have come to finalize the scope of the project, which includes complete sidewalk replacement within the business district. The business district is generally defined as that area between Upper 206th Street and 210th Street, with the exception of the east side of Holyoke Avenue, where there are some residential properties. Streetscape improvements are also proposed in the form of landscaping and other amenities, as well as street light replacement. The estimated project costs are $2,348,205. Of that, approximately $1.1 million will be funded using city CIP funds, and $456,800 will be funded using city operating funds. All of the streetlight improvements proposed with this project will be funded using city streetlight operating funds, and none of the costs associated with the streetlight replacements will be specially assessed. City communication funds and CDBG RIG funds, instead of TIF funds, that's a better clarification of them, will be used for the signage improvements proposed throughout the project area, which I'll discuss a little bit later. Street and storm sewer assessments are a part of the funding for the project. In accordance with the city's assessment policy, benefiting property owners throughout the project area will be specially assessed for the street and surface improvements, meaning storm sewer, curb and gutter, sidewalk, and also the street surface replacement. In addition, a portion of the signage costs will be specially assessed to those business properties within the business district. Within the business district, there was a very detailed streetscape analysis performed. We looked at sidewalks, the availability to install streetscaping components, streetlight replacement through the project area, as well as signage requests that were made by the property owners. And when we look at the typical streetscape that is proposed for this area, we are looking at the installation of bump outs at critical pedestrian crossing locations. These bump outs will not only serve as a safety measure for pedestrians crossing Holyoke Avenue, they'll also serve as an area to include additional landscaping features throughout the downtown area. The concrete installed within the business district area will be a standard gray concrete with a special decorative scoring pattern. From a maintenance standpoint, standard, non-colored, non-stamped concrete is preferred and is more easily replaced for future maintenance needs, but we will be looking at some decorative scoring patterns to further enhance the aesthetics of the area. Trees will be planted throughout the project area. Tree grates will be installed in areas, and we will investigate further the options for flexible or porous pavements around these tree grates to provide watering for these trees, as well as serve a decorative function. Brick columns will be installed with railings at critical locations throughout the project area and will also serve to house some of the signing improvements that are proposed for the project. Decorative streetlights that are currently offered by Excel as standard light fixtures will be installed as a part of the project, and movable flower pots will also be installed within the business district area. The streetlights within this portion of the business district are currently city-owned. The city has very few remaining areas where we own and maintain the streetlight fixtures. As a part of this project, we are proposing to replace the existing streetlights with Excel fixtures. The maintenance of the existing system is quite costly, and partnering with Excel to install their standard fixtures are going to reduce ongoing maintenance costs that the city's incurring as a result of maintaining its own city streetlight operating system. And so Acorn fixtures, like are pictured above, will be installed at mid-block locations, and Cobra fixtures will be installed at intersections to provide additional safety features. Signage was a request made by the DLBA and its members as a part of this project. While not included in the original scope of the project when the budget was put together a year or so ago, it was something that was discussed in great detail. And so we are proposing with the feasibility report to install signage at a number of key locations. One location is the intersection of 202nd and Holyoke Avenue, where both a city message sign and a wayfinding sign will be installed. Gateway signage will be proposed at the entrances to the business district, specifically at 207th Street and 210th Street, and county-approved wayfinding signs are proposed along County Road 70. At the intersection of 202nd Street, there is both a message sign board proposed for the City Hall parcel on the north side of 202nd Street and a wayfinding sign directing folks to the downtown business area. City communication funds will fund wholly the city message concept sign that you see pictured there that shows a message board that can be updated with different community functions that are going on, and a permanent monument sign called the North Primary Downtown Wayfinding sign, as you see there, is proposed on the south side of 202nd Street to direct patrons to the business area. That will be funded using the CDBG RIG funds as the funding source for that particular monument sign. Within the business district, north and south gateway signage is proposed at 207th Street and 210th Street. The remaining CDBG RIG funds will be used to fund this, and any outstanding sign costs will be specially assessed to those benefiting property owners, specifically the business properties within the business district. County-approved wayfinding signs will be installed along County Road 70 using city funds. These are directional signs that you would see on other county entrances to downtown areas throughout the Dakota County area, and they will be installed as a part of this project. We did host a neighborhood meeting, and all property owners were invited to attend in early December of 2016. Only residential property owners did attend that particular meeting, as we had several other meetings with the DLBA and their subcommittee. We discussed sidewalks and streetlight improvements as a part of this project, in particular that the fact that there is a portion of the east side of Holyoke Avenue that does not currently contain a sidewalk or streetlights. We received a lot of feedback from the residents that did attend, and that feedback is contained within the feasibility report. But based on the feedback that was received, the majority did not want to see any additional sidewalk installed as a part of the project. They preferred spot sidewalk replacement as opposed to the option of replacing all of the sidewalk to match what was being installed within the business portion of the project. And they preferred that the existing streetlights be replaced in their current locations as opposed to adding additional streetlights on the east side of Holyoke Avenue. And so what you see out there today in terms of sidewalk locations and streetlight locations will very closely match post-construction. Assessments were estimated as a part of this feasibility report. Again, we will not know the final costs associated with the project until plans and specs are ordered by the City Council and the project is officially bid. But based on the feasibility report estimates, single-family unit will be assessed a rate of $1,948.64 for the improvements. The city's assessment policy is to assess 40% of the street and storm sewer improvements to the benefiting property owners. And for those properties zoned for residential use, the assessments are calculated on a single-family unit basis. For those properties south of 210th Street, where Holyoke Avenue exists as a rural roadway section with no curb and gutter or sidewalks, the estimated single-family unit assessment rate is $1,053.84. Within commercial areas or industrial areas of the city, assessments are calculated on a front foot basis. Similar to the single-family units, it is 40% of the street and storm sewer costs. And so for those non-residential properties located between Upper 216 and 210th Street, 206th Street and 210th Street, the assessment is estimated at $155.53 for the surface improvements. I mentioned that there were also some assessments for the signage improvements, and those are estimated at $5.56 per property, not zoned for residential use between Upper 206th Street and 210th Street. South of 210th Street, there are some non-residential properties. Again, this is a rural road section, no concrete curb and gutter or sidewalks, and so the estimated front foot assessment amount for the mill and overlay of that portion of Holyoke Avenue is estimated at $11.02. Little formatting issue here, but moving forward, we are here tonight on February 6th to present to you the feasibility report for this project and also set a public hearing date. Should the council move forward with this, the public hearing would be scheduled for March 6th of 2017. After the public hearing, should the council decide to order the project and have plans and specifications produced, we would move forward with that work and schedule a bid opening for May 3rd of this year. Following that bid opening, declaring the costs and setting an assessment hearing would take place at the May 15th City Council meeting. An assessment hearing would be held on June 19th, and the council would have the option to consider awarding a construction contract at that time. Construction would not begin until after Panaprog of this year, and so we aren't anticipating any start dates on any of the work until the third week of July or later. We would also specify that work needs to be substantially complete by the beginning of September so that there are no disruptions to the art festival. Assessments for the project would be certified to those benefiting property owners in December of 2017, with first assessment payments due with taxes payable in 2018. So next steps include the acceptance of the feasibility report and setting a public hearing date for March 6th of 2017. And I, Mr. Harges and Mr. Petrie would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Item number 11 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Well, those were the highlighted items presented to the council at their February 6th, 2017 meeting. If you have any questions or comments regarding these agenda items, please feel free to call City Hall. The number is 952-985-4400. Thanks for watching this edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up.